I'm Jerry Gordon, a senior editor at the New English Review, and we are here with Nidra Paula reporting on an interesting development with the second round of the French presidential elections. Nidra, what were the preliminary results of today's second round?
The results tonight reported are approximately 58-42. And that can, there are some other results that will come in later for the big cities, but it won't change very much.
How does that compare to the 2017 election?
The difference was greater. But, the essence of that is that Marine Le Pen, after losing rather miserably in 2017, she decided to, have a kind of political Botox. And so she just smoothed over everything that is her real program and her real intention. And she just went around with this smile. At the end of the campaigning, she said she was going to be the mother of the nation. And so there wasn't the kind of reaction, oh no, we mustn't let the extreme right win. But my point is that if they explained better what populism is and in what way she's a populist, that would have been a better argument. But in any case, I'm very proud that France did not elect a populist. That's the first thing. And I wasn't particularly impressed by Macron before, but he's the president now, and this is where I live, and I want him to succeed. Interesting thing, the losers did not give dignified, democratic, well, I'm saying the losers. Marine Le Pen lost to Macron. She called, as you do, and congratulated him. And then she gave a speech that was a little short version of the campaign with the insults and the accusations, and it's the fault of this and that, and they didn't treat her right, and they won't treat the French right, and so on. And then the ones that didn't even make it to the second round also needed to put their faces in front of us. So Jean-Luc Melenchon, whose latest idea is that he should be elected prime minister, I'll explain later, and Zemmour, who says he's going to unite the right. It was really quite sad to see them because they just repeated again, mumbling, repeated their campaign. When people lose in a democracy, they claim to love their country and love the people. They lost. And it's very sad to see them give their speech and saying, essentially what they say is, oh, well, what the French want is what I was offering. No, but the French just voted, right? The people that didn't vote for them, if they were staying home and saying, oh my goodness, how wonderful Mélenchon is, they didn't vote for them, they didn't win. This is my strongest point at the moment. What we're living now is a very sharp battle between democracy and tyranny. It's being played out in the Ukraine with horrible, horrible brutality and suffering. And it's being played out in our democracies with elections, and then sometimes this refusal to accept the verdict. And I'm very hopeful. I think that the courage of the Ukrainians in their defense of democracy is going to have an important role in the strengthening of democracy in what we used to call the free world, and I hope it stays free. So, as I say, to me, the most important thing is we did not elect a populist. We'll go into this in greater detail with our conversation that will be published in the beginning of May. But the idea that any intelligent, serious person could vote for Marine Le Pen when the tyrant of tyrants is on the loose in Europe, and we are seeing something that we haven't seen since the end of the Second World War, the extent of it is obvious. It reaches all throughout the world. And the idea that you could put a thoughtless, incompetent person, she goes around saying all the time, I've changed. But it sounds like alcoholics, right? I've changed. Oh no, I don't do that. I'm not going to do that anymore. And you can't have somebody with no stature. Be president of France. France is very important in Europe. You know better than anyone. France is the strongest military power in Europe.
Yes.
Great Britain, right?
Yep.
And at a time when suddenly we know that we have to defend ourselves. You can't have, it would have been the most terrible disaster for Europe if she had been elected. And I hope that Americans will wake up and give us credit as Europeans, and give us credit in France for this choice.
I must tell you that if you were reading the American press during the run-up to the second round, it was, oh, pity me, dire consequences, inflation is going to top the NATO and the problems in Ukraine. This result simply confirms what you were just talking about. It is obviously a pushback against populism of the type that is pretty reprehensible.
Yes, and when you have a great, powerful country like the United States,
right,
elects a populist president, again, incompetent, no sense of international relations. Marine Le Pen, when she spoke about international relations, it was laughable if it wasn't tragic. So you can't do that. It's a time for people to get serious. You can't elect incompetent people on a whim, So as I say, I think that this is a lesson for the free world. And I think it's it's a relief. And I saw the article you sent me, but I didn't read it yet.
right.
Okay, Marine Le Pen too. Oh, it's a wonderful victory. When losers say that they had a wonderful victory, you say, well, I'm glad they lost because their sense of reality is not very strong.
What was curious to me was that the author of this New York Times piece was their special correspondent in France.
Who was it? I didn't see the signature.
I can't filter her name at the top of right now, but it's like Didion.
Oh, yeah. But
Yeah.
What strikes me when I read the American or the English language press about French politics is how little specific information is given. And
Right.
I know that at times when I proposed articles to American outlets, they would say, oh, no, there's too much detail, that people can't find their way through all of it. But if you don't give specific details, there's no way to understand what's at play here, which is what we try to do in our monthly conversation, and we will do that.
Does this send another message to people not unlike Marine Le Pen, who had become allies of Putin in the context of the EU? And I'm talking about the guy who just won the election in Hungary.
Yes. And, as you see also in the States, in the old days, people could lie and you couldn't find the proof that they had said what they said. Today, they lie, and 2 seconds later, the video pops up where they said exactly what they pretended they hadn't said. Marine Le Pen, of course, she was stumbling all over herself to say that the invasion was terrible and she doesn't approve. But she had already printed campaign posters showing her with Putin.
Mhm.
So she had to trash them, right? But
Yeah.
everybody knows that. Everybody knows.
I think, are the people of France, notwithstanding domestic concerns, whether it's inflation or some other excuse, supportive of what Macron's position has been like with the defense of defense of Ukraine?
Yes, yes. And in their French way, the French like this idea that they can speak to everyone, and that it was good that Macron could speak to Putin, and that he said, no, we won't say it's a genocide. This kind of thing appeals to French people. But another point that we'll keep our eyes on is that the legislative elections are coming up in June, right? And my prediction is that Macron's party will get the majority. And the bad losers tonight immediately put on their battle gear and sort of said, well, he won the election, but we're going to knife it to him because we'll win the parliamentary election. I don't think so. I don't think so. It's practically unheard of. So then he will have, as he says, take into account all of the votes against him and what's behind them, right and left. And that's what you expect of the president. The bad losers, they're always falling all over themselves, saying how much they love France and they love the French. But when it comes to defending Europe against Putin's aggression, you realize that it's just words when they say how much they love France, because they wouldn't dare to stand up to a dictator that would attack us as much as he's doing in Ukraine. He would do it anywhere else that he can. And they, deep inside themselves, they won't stand up to it.
Where does that place Mr. Zemmour, who some people in the American press had said that he was the wind behind the sails of Miss Le Pen?
Yeah, yes and no, right? He acted so badly that she was able to do this Botox I talked about and say, and of course, he said she can't win, right? So she was very stirred up to prove that she can win. So that in that way, he did make her look good. On the other hand, if you do the arithmetic, you could figure out that he kept her from winning. Because if you put, after he lost, they took polls to see where his voters would go, and they went massively to Marine Le Pen. So if they're all right with Marine Le Pen, why they voted for her right away, she would have had a much better result. Unfortunately, they didn't. So his speech tonight, there were the three grouches: Marine Le Pen, Jean-Luc Melenchon, and Eric Zemmour. And, without the dignity of saying, okay, we had an election, Macron won, he's our president, and we want him to succeed, and we will continue to express our positions, but he's our president. So Zemmour gave a speech, he looked rather sad. that he's going to unite the right, right? I mean, it's just comical. It's just comical.
Nidra, you wrote a trenchant, and I mean trenchant in a positive sense, piece for the Jewish Tribune, as we say in English, effectively dealing with the whole problem of populism.
Yes.
What was the reaction to those who read the piece in France?
Tribune Juive, I have to talk to the editor-in-chief to find out how people are reacting to what I write, because it's not one of those sites that attracts, dozens and dozens of commentaries, which is all the better because most of the time it's not very enlightening and often very cruel. So only one person reacted to that. She ignored every argument I had given to show that populism is no more for the people than communism is for sharing the wealth. And so she just gave back the same arguments that the populists give. Macron is for the elite and the common people are ignored and they're fed up with it and no. And so she said she was going to vote Marine Le Pen because of my article. But that's only one person, so I don't. But I hope by the end of the year to put together all of those chronicles that I've been writing for Tribune Juive, because it's more interesting if you read them one after the other to see the way they're related, as I did in 2000. So, and maybe then I'll try to do an English version. But as I called it, I said that they're populists and that they're false nationalists. That's the thing about populists. Populists never deliver what they promise. So why do people continue to believe? They never, ever deliver what they promise. And what they do, they hook on to a big problem in society that nobody manages to solve, right? Immigration, drug trafficking, violence against women, and what else?
Inflation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The economic things is not even. So they, hook onto the jihad, the things that are really problematical that nobody can solve. And then they say, oh, all these useless people that haven't solved it, I can solve it. Of course, and usually they have no experience anyway. And you can remember, we're going to have the wall and Mexico will pay for it. And that's, that expression, pie in the sky. That's what they offer, is pie in the sky. And sometimes I think about it, what do they mean by pie in the sky? Anyway, we know what it means, but what's the image? But anyway, that's what they offer, is pie in the sky. And again, I said, I'm proud and relieved that the French voters did not fall for it, because at this point, you see, if the invasion of Ukraine didn't happen now, then the dangers that we're facing would have remained theoretical, because Russia has been getting a pass for the last 20 years. But because the danger has now materialized, it's so obvious that you have to have good leadership and responsible citizens. You can't, it's not social media. It's not like. This is life and death now.
Edward, I know that the French Jewish organization had endorsed Macron.
No.
Not.
No. What they said was, this has been a big controversy. They said, don't vote for Zemmour, Le Pen, and Melenchon. So many Jewish people people I respect, were outraged by that, precisely saying, oh, they're not supposed to be, they're not supposed to mix into politics, and they're not supposed, there's no such thing as a Jewish vote, and they're not supposed to tell the voters what. No, what they did is what I did in that article. They said, populism is too dangerous. I think that if you feel that your society doesn't recognize it, then leadership has to tell people the danger of populism. And I mean, Marine Le Pen, her program includes the prohibition of kosher slaughter.
Right.
And I think that it's appropriate for them to speak out. If people can't find that out by themselves, it's appropriate for them to speak out. I have to leave you. I have to leave you now because I'm going to go to hear the speech of Emmanuel Macron at Champ de Mars. And so we can meet next week and we'll do our monthly conversation.
Yes.
Perfect.
And I want to thank you for your observations on what appeared to be a resounding victory for President Macron.
Well, Marine Le Pen thinks it was a resounding victory for herself, but I think it was a resounding victory for democracy. And as I said in that article you mentioned, now everything remains to be done.
So if I had to have a lead for this discussion, is it Macron's victory against populism?
I think it's a French voters' victory against populism.
French
And
vote.
now Macron has to make good on that. And he's very intelligent, and he knows that it is not a resounding victory for him. It's a resounding victory against this danger of putting an incompetent, dishonest person as president of France in one of the most dangerous periods of our modern history. And he knows, so, you know, people on the right are going to be angry when he does things to please the voters on the left and vice versa. But that's what he has to do to govern.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll follow it from there.
We shall follow that indeed.
Okay.
Much love as always.
Okay, see you later in the week.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye.